Community Connections, CKMS, local sounds, thoughts, passions, and success. Celebrate local, your neighbor's got a story to tell. Community Connections, CKMS.
Happy Monday, Waterloo Region. It is Monday, the 29th of May, the last Monday in May. We're about to enter the first month of summer, but we're not quite there yet. Today in the studio we have Fabian Fletcher, the president of the board for Tri-Pride, which is coming up real soon. Good morning, Fabian. Good to have you here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome. We're going to be listening to another track from Stunt Double, who was in the studio with us a few weeks ago. This is called Dread from his album Generic Hip Hop Folder. That's Dread. Tracks created by Stunt Double, Czar, who's in the studio a little while ago. Nice instrumental music, good for introducing the show, good for introducing Fabian Fletcher, the president of Tri-Pride. Good morning, Fabian. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing good, thanks. How are you?
Good. You're the president of Tri-Pride, which is not the executive director. Tell me what the difference might be.
Yeah, of course. So because Tri-Pride is volunteer-based and we don't have any paid staff members, we don't have an executive director currently. So our board of directors is a group of wonderful folks who are community advocates and dedicated community members, and we all do Tri-Pride on a volunteer basis. So in 2023, in February, I was appointed the president position after being on the board for a couple years. Which was a perfect time to join the board because we started planning the summer festival, but we still had time for me to, kind of include my input and stuff, and work with the other board, directors on the board to create what we were hoping for the summer festival.
Okay. And Tri-Pride is strictly set up to do the festival in June.
Yeah, so along with the summer festival, we actually do a couple other events throughout the summer. Not throughout the summer, but throughout the year. So we have Winter Pride, which is usually in either March or February. And then we also do Pridetoberfest during the Oktoberfest
really?
weekend.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's one of our more popular events that we do throughout the year as well.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And as a board member, what sort of things need to be done to make Tri-Pride work?
Oh, there is a lot. So with our events that we have throughout the year, we're constantly busy planning those. Mm-hmm. So as soon as one ends, we're working on the next one. But along with that, there's a lot of kind of things that folks tend to forget about organizations, right? So all of our policies and procedures need to be reviewed annually, and we have to do revisions to that. There's a lot of governance pieces as well. And with our current board setup, what we're hoping to do is to also work more towards advocacy and doing grassroots community organization as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, I can use a bit of that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
How big's the board?
So our board currently is 8 or 9 folks. We have a vice president and a couple other board directors who have all other roles as well. So someone takes over our vendors market. We have someone who is on sponsorships. We have a treasurer and a development director. So yeah, we're a small but mighty group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'd be sort of the head of the committees, and you'd have a lot more volunteers
For the most part, yeah.
doing
So-
the grunt work.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
How many volunteers would put on the festival in the summer?
Oh, it takes a lot of volunteers to
I'll
make
bet.
it run. Yeah, so we do a volunteer call out, and I don't have exact numbers, but I think it's always like 20 plus volunteers that we actually
Okay,
need.
okay.
And we rely on them to do a lot of work. So it's our bar setup and tear down, actually staffing that area. We have some vendors, we have some volunteers who oversee our vendors market and kind of help vendors with any questions or technical assistance. We have our volunteers who kind of help us manage the stage area as well. So it's a great team.
Yeah, and are you full? Do you need more volunteers, or?
We're always looking for more volunteers. I think
volunteers.
we're good for the summer festival, but
Okay.
Pride-Toberfest is right around the corner.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sure you can always use extra muscles to set up and tear down. If
Absolutely.
nothing else, yeah.
Yeah.
So how do people volunteer? If somebody wants to volunteer, how should they get a hold of you or somebody?
The best way to contact us is through email. So
Okay.
you can email us at info@tri-pride.ca, or you can, we will post Google Forms on social media when we're doing a volunteer call out,
Okay.
and that's a good way to sign up as well.
Okay. And if anybody just wants to pop over during the festival and say, hey, I can lift that box for you,
Yeah,
that would work too?
of course, yeah,
Okay, 'cause
that'd be
that's
great.
how I've gotten involved in a lot of organizations, just being there and seeing the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Now, how long does it take to set up something like Pride, the Pride Festival?
For planning or like day of?
Well, the planning, I think, is what I was getting at.
Yeah, so planning, I believe we started planning the summer festival in January. There's a lot of pieces and a lot of kind of paperwork that you have to deal with.
Paperwork.
Yeah, so permits, licensing, contracts, invoices. Yeah. So there's a lot of.
Where's Pride taking place this year?
So it's at Willow River Park, which is
Willow
also
River.
known as Victoria Park.
Yes, formerly known as, or hopefully formerly known as.
Hopefully, officially, formally known as.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and the first time that I actually came to a Pride was occupying King Street in downtown in front of City Hall.
Okay. Yeah.
That was, around 2015 or so, I think. Have you just outgrown the space?
I think it's a mix of outgrowing the space, but also wanting to highlight local businesses in Kitchener, right? So with the expansion to the park, what we're able to do is we're able to accommodate a lot more folks, but also have a more robust vendors market. So this year we
Okay.
have about 50 to 60 vendors
Well, that's good.
who are community organizations, small businesses, pop-ups, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And a lot of independent crafts people that produce things that for which they don't have a storefront necessarily.
Definitely, yeah.
And then other organizations that come in just to have a presence at the festival to, get their name out there and known as well. So, but it's too late to get signed up for that, I imagine.
It is, yeah. So we filled up really early this year, and we've had a couple folks reach out. So I mean, it is a little bit too late, but next year, please stay on our social media, and we'll post a call out.
Okay. And is that because this is the first time you're back after COVID?
No, so we were back last year.
You were back last year?
Yeah, we were.
Oh, I missed the whole thing.
So last year we were the first weekend in June, and we usually try to stay the first weekend in June. Just scheduling, it could have happened this year. But last year was our first year back post-COVID.
Okay. And was it an overwhelmingly populated thing, or was it kind of? Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Good.
No, it was great. The turnout was amazing.
Okay. 'Cause, I've heard from other festival organizers that attendance just wasn't up to snuff after they'd been away for a few years. Either people had lost the mind share for the event, or people just weren't ready to come out yet.
Definitely, and that's fair. One thing that we were thankful for is because it's an outdoor space, it's easier to social distance and also
Yeah.
easier, to mask and have COVID safe protocols in place. So that's why, like, we're thankful for the turnout that we had, and we're hoping to increase that this year. But I think that post-COVID, a lot of folks in the region were looking for something to do for Pride Month, and I'm really thankful that we were able to operate and be there.
Good, good. So aside from the vendor booths, 50 or 60 you said, that's a nice number. What else goes on during Pride Festival?
So we have our performances. So from 12 to 4, we will be having local live performances. So music, some speakers. We'll also be having some spoken word and stand-up being done. And then from 4 to 8, we have our lovely and iconic drag performances.
Who's all performing today or this festival?
So our headliners, we have Alicia Brilla for our musical headliner.
Oh, cool.
Wonderful,
Big
super
name.
excited, yeah. And then for our drag headliners, we have Angina from season 1 of RuPaul's Drag Race. And then we have Trinity K. Bonet, who is also another Drag Race alum.
Wow. Okay, that's a good lineup there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that goes on until 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
So the live performances, the musical live performances go until 4, and then our drag is from 4 to 8.
Okay, so that's a long performance.
Yeah. So it's going to be a full day of events and fun.
Sounds like lots of fun.
Yeah.
How did you get a hold of performers? I mean, these are some fairly big names.
Yeah. So we have a wonderful person who manages our performers and kind of does the outreach and call outs. So for all of our local performers, we have a sign up sheet for local performers and drag queens. And then for our headliners, it's just a matter of like sending out a whole bunch of emails and trying to coordinate like quotes and the actual logistic pieces from it.
So really, it's cold calling to
For the most
performers.
part, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
because like they have their managers, and usually their managers will oversee and kind of book their performers long in advance. So thankfully, we're good to like we got on it right in January and February this year.
I guess you need that lead time so that the
Yeah.
performers don't have scheduling conflicts.
Absolutely, especially during Pride Month. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you get any performers clamoring to be in the show? Or you didn't have to go out and reach out to them, but they reached out to you?
Yeah, so all of our local performers.
That's the big time.
So all of our local performers are sign up based, which I think is great because it gives us a chance to highlight smaller performers in
Yes.
Waterloo region, right? So last year for our drag performers, we had some folks who had just been performing from that year. Like that was the first time that
Okay.
they'd ever performed. So it's a good way to highlight the local talent that we have in KW, and we have such a great drag scene as well. So, yeah.
How long has Pride been going on? The Pride Festival here in Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge.
Yeah, so Tri Pride has been operating since 2002 or 2003, I believe. And they've been doing summer festivals, but also other events from that time, minus COVID years.
Minus the COVID years, yeah. Everybody's got a gap in their activities from COVID, I think.
Yeah.
So that's like 10, 12 years at this point.
It is,
You know,
yeah.
That's a nice run.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's always been volunteer based, which is awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that Tri-Pride itself is an incorporated entity,
We are.
for
Yeah.
because that's probably for insurance reasons and the like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of trouble getting the permits and insurance and public health permits and fire permits and the like? 'Cause
No, not really. So just because like the city of Kitchener is really great with that stuff, they have a team dedicated to working with organizers who are putting on events in the space.
Okay.
And because Tri-Pride has been around for as long as it has been, every year like we have a great connection with the team. We'll just be like, hey, this is the day that we're looking at. Is it possible? And they really work with us to make things as easy as possible. So I had a meeting last week with the events team from the city of Kitchener, and we went through all of the things that we needed to do. There's no like red tape in the process. It's just, have you applied for this yet? Have you done this? Have you filled out this paperwork yet? And they'll help you do it as well. So
Yeah, that's good. 'Cause I was under the impression that things have become more onerous the last 5-10 years, where there's more requirements for permits for getting the other agencies involved, like the fire and public health. And it has sunk a couple of other small organizations that just didn't have the staffing available to deal with those things.
Absolutely.
And so Tri-Pride is big enough with a robust board that they have people to deal with.
And
those
thankfully,
things.
and you know, Tri-Pride is very privileged to have the folks that we have on the board right now. We have folks who have such a wide variety of experience and expertise. So we have some folks who are great at filling out paperwork and applying for licenses, right?
That's a skill.
It is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
But you know, I wish there were more ways that we can make it more accessible to smaller organizers and more community-based folks to have space in the park and to create festivals and put on events, right?
Yeah.
Because even just the process of applying for insurance, like board of directors insurance and festival insurance, we had to have 3 years of audited statements of our financials. And that's very inaccessible for some folks who have really small organizations or don't have the ability to hire an auditor.
Yes,
So
exactly. Exactly. And a lot of the smaller groups are just shoestring. You know, they operate essentially on zero budget.
absolutely.
And it's all contributions from the volunteers that make it happen. So, you know, there are no statements to audit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I fear that makes venues like Willow River Park inaccessible. So that would be unfortunate.
Definitely.
I'd like to get into the history of Pride a little bit more.
Of course.
But I think before we do that, I just want to go with another song here. Let's have a listen to something by Andrew Jacob Reinhardt, who was in the studio with us a little while ago. Queer artist from Kitchener-Waterloo region. So we'll listen to that. This is from his album called This Garden, and the song is Postlude. I love the way it flows. listening to Andrew Jacob Reinhardt, his music box from This Garden EP. It is called Prelude. Got in the studio with me, Fabian Fletcher from Tri Pride, the festival that goes on. When does the festival go on?
This festival this year will be June 10th.
June the 10th, and taking place in Willow River Park.
That is correct, from 12 to 8.
12 to 8 o'clock, formerly known as the Victoria Park. Victoria Park, right, in downtown Kitchener. So it's Tri Pride. You're covering all three cities?
Yeah, so historically we have covered all three cities and tried to do events in the past, like in all three cities. In recent years, I will say that we have not been out in Cambridge as much as we want to. That is a gap that we acknowledge, but there actually is a great group of folks in Cambridge right now who just recently started, called Grand River Pride, and they're doing a lot of events in Cambridge for the week of Pride, so the first week in June.
Okay, and that's not related to Tri Pride directly, but I guess you're cooperating to.
Yeah, we're working together. Yeah.
Okay, and they're putting on their event when?
Their summer festival is also on June 10th.
Oh, also on June 10th. Oh my,
Yeah.
competition.
But they have an entire week of events leading up to June 10th as well.
Okay, have to talk to those folks next year and get some coordination going on.
Absolutely,
for that.
absolutely, yeah.
So Pride is a fun thing. You know, we go out there, we enjoy ourselves, we bask in the sun and buy trinkets and foods and watch the shows and listen to the music. But that's not how Pride started.
It is not, no.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I will say that I am in no claims kind of like a historian, but you know, I think it's important for everyone to know that Pride started off as a protest, and it started off kind of with the Stonewall riots, where our community was just so fed up of the constant policing and brutality of our community from the hands of the police and external community, that, you know, it was a buildup of, you know, frustrations and injustice that took Pride off to what it was originally, which is the protest.
Yeah, and it wasn't just people waving placards and shouting slogans. There was some actual violence that was taking place during that. It's a riot, the Stonewall riot. Yeah, people got hurt. People were thrown in jail, and the end result was that people became more accepting of the queer community, or I mean, I think that still isn't the case today. You know? There's a lot of resistance, and we're seeing a huge backlash in the United States at the moment against drag shows and even just people dressing in what some people consider gender inappropriate clothing. Are things getting worse again?
I think that, you know, with past history, recent history in the States, folks feel a lot more comfortable sharing their hate and sharing their discriminatory views in, you know, public and on social media. So it's not necessarily to say that things are getting worse, because things historically haven't always been the greatest for queer folks, especially queer people of color and trans folks. It's just now we're seeing a lot more outwardly progressive hate in our communities.
It's always been there under the surface, and it's that surface veneer has been ripped away through social media and who knows what else. Yeah. And so we're seeing people in their true colors, as it were, no longer inhibited by social norms to, tone their views. Yeah. And as a result, has life become more difficult for queer folks?
I think that it has become more difficult. Like we look at the States, and there's that saying, the States sneezes and we get a cold, right?
Yes.
In Canada. So when we look at how many bills are currently anti-trans and anti-drag and anti-2S LGBTQIA+, it's shocking and heartbreaking to see, because unfortunately these things translate into Canadian politics as well.
Right.
And they transfer over through, feeling okay to spread your hatred and feeling okay to target the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, which it is not, and it's not, you know, it's discriminatory and homophobic. But, you know, with this actions that are happening in the States, there's only so much that we can do to kind of counter it without relying on our politicians and the folks we elect into power to say something and say enough is enough.
Right. Have there been incidents here in Canada, in Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, that show an escalation of intolerance?
So I'd say within Canada, yes. I haven't heard anything within Kitchener-Waterloo recently.
Okay.
But, you know, we have Oxford County Pride, who is currently dealing with, you know, their elected officials saying that we're not going to be flying the pride flag this year.
Right.
Only, like, the flags that they choose. And it's heartbreaking to see because, you know, it's such a simple and small thing for our elected officials to do is to at least acknowledge June as
Right.
Pride Month, but to say, hey, we're not going to fly your flag, like, it's just, you know, it's, it makes me question how much of this would have happened if, you know, the States isn't currently going through what it's going through, right?
Right. So that's us catching the cold.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
catching the cold.
Well, I'm glad to see that Pride is still being supported by the city here in Kitchener. So that's a good thing. What sort of actions can Pride, can other LGBT organizations take to stop this from spreading, stop the intolerance?
It's a tricky line to walk because on one hand, you know, we have to ensure the safety of our community and so for Tripride's example, like we have to ensure the safety of the folks who are attending our space, but constantly reminding, you know, the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, but also the Waterloo Region community as a whole, that although we are here to celebrate and have a good time, we have to remember that Pride started off as a protest. It has and always will be an act of protest. And remember that, you know, although we have, for lack of a better word, we have it better than our folks in the States, we are still under attack. And our trans, non-binary, and people of color who are queer are still under attack daily.
Yeah. So what should non-LGBT folks, you know, I'm sitting here as a cis, hetero, white male, the antithesis of LGBT folks. But I find, I consider myself an ally, but I'm not very active in promoting that allyship. What should I do to turn the tide, to turn things back to tolerance?
You can show up for the queer community at events, at protests, at rallies. You can lobby your elected officials. So Tripride joined on to a campaign recently called #Act for Queer Safety, thrown out by Momentum Canada. And we signed an open letter to our government officials and folks in power, so at the provincial and the federal level, saying that enough is enough, you need to act for queer safety. So joining on to campaigns like that, promoting those through social media, getting involved with local organizations who need your support and need you to show up at events and in their spaces.
Right.
That's how you can get involved and be a better ally.
Okay. In some cases, I feel that my presence isn't necessarily welcome. Is that a valid concern?
It is, and there are definitely going to be spaces that are strictly reserved for the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, right? Especially folks intersecting within that community. So, for example, we have spaces, and we're trying to create spaces that are geared towards BIPOC queer folks, and trying to create
BIPOC.
So Black, Indigenous, people of color,
Right.
and, you know, trying to work and create space for indigiqueer youth and Two-Spirit youth and those intersecting personalities.
Right.
So when we try to create space intentionally, there are going to be times where allies are going to be asked to sit out and not attend and take up space in those areas. But it's always wise to know how you show up and when you need to show up. So for things that are to the larger community, like our summer festival, show up.
Yes.
And, you know, show your support and, you know, use your voice and use your privilege to advocate for your 2S LGBTQIA plus community members and friends. But if someone is saying, hey, we're saving the space and we're trying to create an intentional space for our community, understand that it's okay and just respectfully be like, okay, I understand.
And
I
as
see
an
you.
ally, we understand that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there anything in progress right now? You mentioned that one organization that's have they got a petition to the government or anything like that? Kate Glasson's petition,
Yeah.
the one that advocated for asylum and refugee status for LGBT people from what we normally consider safe third countries, to give them refugee status in Canada, because things aren't necessarily safe for them in places like the U.S.
Absolutely.
Anything like that happening?
There is. So for the Act for Queer Safety movement,
Okay.
the organization does have a petition online. You can find it at their social media and their website. It's Momentum. And you can sign the petition, and that goes towards the federal and the provincial levels of government, asking them to step up for our communities and show up.
Okay. Definitely have links to that in the show notes.
Yeah.
So have a look at radiowaterloo.ca/ccc, and I'll have all those links to the petitions and the other organizations, as well as Tri Pride. Tell me about your online presence, Tri Pride's online presence.
Yeah, of course. So we are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We try to post as much as possible, knowing that we are all volunteers who don't have social media experience. So if you see some post and you're like, ooh, what is that? Just know we're trying our best. Yeah. But that is where you can find information about all of our events and upcoming experiences that we're having.
A lot of historical stuff. I'm seeing a reference here to Tri Pride on June 4th. That must have been last year. Yeah. And then you're on Facebook as well.
We are. So we have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. Our Facebook group, we facilitate a space for folks to promote their own events, businesses, and happenings in the community. But we also have the Facebook page where we post. Okay.
And then if we're interested in finding out about events and the like, right now it's getting posted on Facebook. You're telling me about your website, which is currently somewhat out of date.
Yeah, so I am in no ways a website developer, but our website is very outdated. So if you see it and you're like, what is this festival in 2019? Please know we're working on it. We're trying.
Yeah. But you've got a new volunteer.
We do. We have a new board member who is amazing at social media communications and website development.
And so they'll have it back up and running in no time.
In no time.
Okay, great. I think it's time for another song.
Sounds good.
Going to play something by Courtney Wolfe. I think she's from Cambridge.
I know Courtney.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, this is one of her more recent pieces called She.
Take me back to when I saw you standing there, long shirt, short hair, my girl, right there. Going back to when I knew I cared. Talk first, I'm scared, breath of fresh air. She looks away, I look away. I'm scared to see her pretty face for too long. She's gotta go in. But I don't think she's my mistake at all. She's all I want. She is all I want. She is all I want. Take me now to one of our midnights up close. I try to hold on tight, going out to make sure we collide. I know our minds, they show the signs. She looks away, I look away. I'm scared to see her pretty face for too long. She's gotta go in now. She's my escape, so far away, but I don't think she's my mistake at all. She's all I want. She say. If you took me for someone to play, just know that you got the wrong taste. She looks away, I look away. I'm scared to see her pretty face for too long. She's got it going on. She's my escape, so far away, but I don't think she's my mistake at all. She's all I want. She's all I want. She's all I want. She's all I want. She's all I want.
Courtney Wolf, a song called She, which has been out for maybe a year at this point, I think. Got Fabian Fletcher in the studio from TriPride, TriPride Inc.
TriPride Community Association, Inc.
Oh my,
Yeah, that's our
okay.
official name.
All right. I think people will just call you TriPride and we know exactly what they mean. Yeah. How many Pride organizations do you think there are across the world, across Canada?
That is a good question. And actually, since I've stepped into the president role, I've noticed that a lot of regions have their own Pride organization. We do have kind of governing, mandating bodies, not mandating bodies, but there's memberships that you can join to network and communicate with other Pride organizations.
Okay. Like an organization of organizations, a
Pretty much.
federation.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's one for Canada-wide, and then there's one for international Pride organizations
really?
as well. Yeah. So
really?
it's called Interpride, and they have a lot of cool resources as well. But there have been a lot of Pride organizations, especially recently starting Pride organizations as well.
Right, right. And joining such a group, a federation like that, what's in it for TriPride in Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge?
I think what's in it for us and what I really wanted to get from it was just to hear from other organizations about what's working for them, what they're doing, and kind of just support each other. So that's how we found out about the whole Act for Queer Safety movement,
okay, yeah.
But also kind of working together to brainstorm things that work for our community and our Pride festivals. So, hey, does the security company work for you, or how many folks do you usually serve, stuff like that, just logistical pieces as well.
Okay. Are there any things planned, like a Canada-wide Pride celebration, advocacy to have this recognized at say, a governmental level?
That would be a really cool idea. I don't necessarily know of any. I do believe Capital Pride in Ottawa does have what is deemed kind of the nationwide Pride organization and Pride festival. And I know that Interpride, so the Federation for International Pride Organizations, they have a Interpride festival as well.
Okay.
So they have something for everyone.
Okay, that'd be cool. I'd like to see something like that.
Definitely.
Aside from the riotous beginning of Pride, it has become, to me at any rate, a happy event. The festival isn't protesting so much anymore as it is celebrating.
It's building communities. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that the Pride Festival is on its way, what happens afterwards? You said something about October.
Yeah, so we jump straight into planning for Pridetoberfest, which is usually the same weekend, kind of in the same lineup as Oktoberfest. And what it is it's a dance / drag performer / other performers inside this time. Not like our summer festival, but this one will be inside, and it's just more fun, and it's a good time.
Yeah. You say more fun as in additional fun rather than funner.
Yeah, additional fun to do in the community during the year.
That's right. And those are the two big events for TriPride.
Yeah. Winter Pride is typically a little bit smaller just because it's around that weird time in the new year. So in January, like February-ish. But that one's usually kind of more of a dance with maybe one or two drag performers.
Okay. Aside from the festivals and the events that you're putting on, are there like regular meetings for the Tri-Pride group that meet once a month for coffee or something, just as a social thing?
Like for our board?
There's the board meetings, of course, but that's business.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more for other members to just get together and commune.
No, but that is something that we would love to do.
Okay.
Yeah, so we
Probably
want to
need a
be
venue for that,
more social and do more kind of low key things, right? So if it's like a coffee night or if it's like just a speed friending, like things like that is something that we're hoping to do in the upcoming year.
Andrew Jacob Reinhardt, who I played earlier, organized a rainbow ride,
wow.
a bike trip around Woolwich Township. That was back when there was some friction from a township councillor, and Andrew brought us all together, just in solidarity. So I'd like to see that again, Andrew. If you're listening, put on another rainbow ride for the community.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So those festivals are already in place. What about other pride groups? I mean, there's Spectrum, which is right here in the building.
Yeah.
I think you're associated with Spectrum as well.
I am a staff member at Spectrum. So I see I oversee kind of their volunteer and operations. But what Tri-Pride really wants to do is not step on anyone's toes.
Yeah.
So we have great community leaders and great organizers and organizations in Waterloo region. What we're trying to do is kind of like see how we can work with and also see how we can work around, right? So Spectrum has a lot of programming for the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, and they partner with a lot of great organizations. How can Tri-Pride, without stepping on your toes, support and uplift and other organizations, right?
Spectrum has good communication with the non-LGBT community, putting on things like seminars and information sessions, how to enable companies to deal with diversity in their workplace, for example. Yeah, so there's that, I guess it's advocacy of some sort, education advocacy.
Yeah, definitely. It's capacity building as well, right?
Capacity building. How do you mean capacity building?
So when I think of capacity building, what I think of is, building the capacity of organizations outside of, 2S LGBTQI communities or organizations. So when Spectrum does like trainings with, businesses, they're building the capacity of that business to be more accepting and to be a safer space for queer folks.
Safer space.
There, yeah.
So, okay. And that obviously for a business is going to increase their customer base, increase their supplier base.
Yeah.
And this is generally good all around. Okay. Tri-Pride itself, though, the organization is strictly dealing with the events rather than, I guess, not stepping on the toes of
definitely
the other organizations that are doing that work.
Yeah. So we don't like we focus on the events, and we focus on creating spaces is what I'll say. So one of our mandates and one of our goals for the upcoming year is to create more intentional spaces that aren't revolving around alcohol or creating dry spaces as well. So we're going to be looking at ways to do smaller events throughout the year that's tailored to different parts of our community.
And that is for the public at large, or just for? Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
So for the most part, all of the events will be similar to what we have going on, not like festivals, but it'll be open to the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, and then the community at large for most of them. We might look into creating some intentional spaces for BIPOC folks who identify as a part of the rainbow community, and we might also look into creating some programming around youth who identify as 2S LGBTQIA+. And those will probably just be tailored towards those populations. But for the most part, we're looking to create community.
Community, out at large.
Yeah.
You said that Alicia Brilla is one of your performers coming up. I happen to have a song queued up by her.
Amazing.
Something with an appropriate title, I think. I'm not sure if the song is about this, but it's called Gender Roles. And Alicia Brilla will be very likely performing that, or definitely other things at Tri-Pride coming up on June 10th.
And we're excited.
Yeah. Here's Alicia Brilla.
I was walking through the city, concrete cascading around me. Look around it, all the
A quick end to that. Alicia Brilla, gender roles. And Alicia is the headliner musical act for Tri-Pride Festival happening in Willow River Park on June the 10th. Why Alicia?
When we were looking at who we wanted and who our dream lineup was, we wanted to make sure that they were representative of the folks that we serve in the community. And one of my friends recommended Alicia because they're a major fan, loves their music, and had actually met them as well. So I decided to listen, and I was like, nope, they have to come. I will do anything for her to be one of our headliners. And thankfully it worked out well, and it all came together really smoothly. So
Your focus for entertainers this year was to have people
yeah,
more
so
local?
it was to have a mix of local, but also, bring in some folks who traditionally we try to bring in a headliner from Drag Race, either Canadian or the American version. But this year, what we really wanted to do was to highlight diversity in our lineup. So understanding and acknowledging that historically some of our performers and some of our drag shows have been predominantly white folks and drag queens. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to create and highlight and represent what our community actually looks like. So we have both of our drag headliners who are racialized and also HIV positive as well, and have been very active and in their advocacy work around HIV and reducing that stigma.
Oh yeah, I guess that's something I'm not even considering as part of the LGBT movement. Is that it was so heavily associated with HIV,
Definitely.
and I guess that's still somewhat the case. And so you've got people continuing that advocacy. Excellent,
Definitely.
excellent. Yeah. Let's just cover everything again. We've got Tri-Pride happening starting at
12 p.m.
12 noon.
12 noon.
On June the 10th.
June the 10th.
That's a Saturday.
It is.
Next week's, not this coming Saturday, but Saturday a week from now.
Yeah.
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 And that goes right until 8 p.m. in the evening.
Yes.
And-
And one thing to add is that starting at 9 p.m. on June 10th, there is a dance hosted by Queer Night Out. So for folks who are looking to continue their day and continue their celebrations, check them out on social media.
And your social media is?
Our social media is Tri-Pride. You can find us on Facebook at Tri-Pride Community Association. You can find us on Instagram at Tri-Pride KWC, and you can find us on Twitter at Tri-Pride Fest.
Tri-Pride Fest. I have all those links in the show notes, but you can look them up right now if you want, and just get an idea of what's all planned. Yeah. I was just lamenting the fact that we have very little LGBT content on Radio Waterloo. We have Can Queer coming up at noon with Luke and Sebastian, and I guess that's the Canada-wide LGBT show, but we have nothing for the local community. And so I ask you, Fabian, and anybody else who's listening, if you want to put a show on Radio Waterloo. We have lots of openings on the schedule, and you're quite welcome to do a show on LGBT issues or any other issue that's close to your heart. Send us a note, office@radiowaterloo.ca, or have a look at the website, radiowaterloo.ca/startashow, which gives you the information for getting on the radio yourself. We're getting close to the end of the show here. I want to thank you, Fabian, for coming in and spending an hour with us telling us about Tri-Pride and some of the history of Pride and some of the associated organizations that are in the area and in the community.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful. I've really appreciated our conversation.
Yeah, it's lots of fun.
Yeah.
When Tri-Pride is over, the curtains are closed and the stage has been rolled up, what are you planning on doing yourself?
Oh, man, I am going home, and I'm going to take a nice nap and then get right back to work planning the next one.
Yeah, it starts that soon, does it? You're going right into the into the planning for next year. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Pride-Oktoberfest. Oh, yes. Oh,
Pride-Oktoberfest,
yes.
yeah,
Yes.
because that is in October.
Mm-hmm.
So then, following that, then we'll start planning for the next year.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Give
Yeah.
yourself a bit of a break in between,
Yeah.
and get those coffee shops going.
Absolutely,
That'll be,
absolutely.
a lot of good fun for anybody to come out and build community.
Definitely, definitely.
All right, you've been listening to CKMS Community Connections. I've had in the studio Fabian Fletcher, the president of the board for Pride. Has a longer name, but I've forgotten already. CKMS Community Connections is a production of Radio Waterloo. It's sponsored by Radio Waterloo. The executive producer is Jennifer Strong. Contributing producer is Jeff Sager. My name is Bob Johnson. CKMS Community Connections airs every Monday at 11 o'clock and alternate Fridays at 3 p.m. Stay tuned to your radio. Talk to you again next week.